puzzlement, but he did not contradict his master's words. "As your grace pleases," he murmured, which was his usual response to Will's teasing. The driver of the cart, a gnarled old man who'd been transporting travellers from Stafford St. Mary's tiny train station to various homes, inns, and Dartmouth beauty spots since well before Will's birth, gave a chuckle. "A fine day for riding," he commented, giving Will a shrewd, knowing look. "And for a race across the moor, perhaps?" Will laughed. "You know me far too well, Mr. Robinson. Remarkable, given how much time has passed." "Some things don't change with time, your grace," the old man said. "I've a strong young gelding you might like. Not fully trained, mind, but full of spit and fast as the wind." That was more than enough persuasion for Will. He turned to his valet. "No need for you to ride on the dummy board, Armand. Step up on the box with Mr. Robinson here, and I shall ride to Sunderland Park. In fact," he added, returning his attention to the old man, "I'll hire that gelding of yours for a full week, if I may." "And have him fully trained by the time you return him, I'll wager," Mr. Robinson answered, and started to climb down as if to fetch the horse in question. Will forestalled him. No, don't trouble yourself. I'll have young Jim saddle the gelding for me. That is, if he's still with you, and hasn't gone off to make his fortune." The old man shook his head at that reference to his only son, and once again settled himself on the box as Armand climbed up to sit beside him. "Jim's still here, your grace, though not for much longer, I expect. Filled with grand ideas, he is, about going to work in the factories up north, or in the shipyards in Plymouth. He even talks of going off to India, or Africa, as you did, sir." "It's not a bad life," Will assured him, but Mr. Robinson seemed unconvinced. "Begging your pardon, your grace, but there's no place on God's earth better than Britain. Besides," he added before Will could debate that point, "he'd break his mother's heart if he goes." Shaking his head at the silly dreams of the younger generation, Mr. Robinson snapped the reins, sending the cart into motion. Will crossed the road to the stables, and 15 minutes later he was taking Galahad, Robinson's fast young gelding, out of the village and along the road to Sunderland Park. For the moment he kept the horse to a slow, easy canter, glad to have arrived home on such a gorgeous day. It was warm for England, but even here, near Devonshire's Torbay coast, even on a summer afternoon, it didn't seem particularly warm to Will. Not like Egypt, where temperatures could be beastly at this time of year. It was good, he thought in surprise, to be home. He hadn't expected that. Nonetheless, the surrounding landscape of rolling hills and hedgerows gave him a strange sense of unreality. He'd grown up here. He knew every bend in this road, recognized each pasture of Devonshire ponies and Jersey cows he passed. He could identify all the scents in the air, apple orchards and pasture land and the nearby tang of the sea, all mingled in the unmistakable fragrance of home. Everything was just as he remembered it, just as it always had been, yet it seemed almost alien to him, making him appreciate that Egypt, not England, was his home now. He turned off the main road, memory guiding him as he crossed the stone bridge that spanned the River Stafford and turned onto the road that led towards Sunderland Park, Danbury Downs, and the wild moors beyond those neighbouring estates. The house at Sunderland was leased these days, of course, but the wealthy American family using the place was touring the Lake District up north, enabling him to have use of it for the rest of the summer. Not that he'd need the place that long. He hoped to have his business concluded and be gone again within a week or two. Because he wanted to be here as short a time as possible, it occurred to Will that he ought to give the grounds at least a cursory survey, instead of spending his afternoon gallivanting across the moor. He was the Duke now, after all, and though he cared little for his title, it was his obligation to care for the acres he'd inherited. In the interests of time, estate business ought to come first. The gelding beneath him, however, seemed to have other ideas. Galahad tossed his head with a contemptuous-sounding snort, as if disagreeing with such tiresome priorities, and Will laughed. "No boring tours around the park for you, I take it."